What up, what up, what up? Welcome in to the Celtics postgame here on the Bleacher Report app. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to a Game 7. The Boston Celtics find a way, somehow, somewhere, 95-86 on the road over the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 6. And we are ecstatic to be here with you. My name is Will Weir. I'm one of the co-hosts of our show, Green with Envy. And as always, I've got my two partners riding shotgun with me. We got the coach, Greg Menakis, and the chief of the Taylor gang, Adam Taylor himself. And to be honest, I'm still coming down from, I swear to God, I'm sober tonight, guys, but I have been all types of mixed emotions. There's been highs, there's been lows, there's been anxiety. But at the end of the day, Game 7 will be upon us on Sunday afternoon. Adam, let's start with you. You have graced us with your presence in a zombie apocalypse at God knows what time it is across the pond here with us. So I want to give you the floor here. Walk us through what emotions you're feeling right now after this game.
Yeah, so it's 3:30 a.m. and I am riding on a cloud of emotions. As Ron Burgundy would say, I'm in a glass cage of emotion. So look, man, everything for me was all on Tatum, right? Bad first three quarters, really struggled. It felt like that he just didn't have it tonight. And finding a way for the Celtics to beat Philly when Philly were playing their way in the third, without Tatum playing well, that's a scary proposition. Tatum comes alive in the fourth, 16-point quarter, just steals Philly's lunch money, just snatched their soul clean out of their body, Shang Tsung style from Mortal Kombat. And by the end of it, they were shell-shocked, man. So I'm good. I'm feeling really good. I'm concerned with Horford's decision-making at points. I felt like Rob's defense was an issue too. But overall, I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling very, very good. Game 7, baby. Let's get this.
Yeah, man. I mean, it all starts with Tatum, right? All starts with Tatum. We were saying some stuff in our group chat that we'll never ever see. They'll never be available for public consumption because we were melting down just along with Jason Tatum through those first three quarters. Blasphemous things were being said. We were talking about blowing it up. What are we going to do in the offseason? And then he puts his Superman cape on in that fourth quarter, and he does what superstars do. Even when you have the worst game of your career, which this was Jason Tatum's worst game of his career up until that fourth quarter, he really put that Superman cape on and he took the team home, which was desperately needed because we've seen throughout the tenure of the Jays and the Marcus Smart run is that down the stretch of big games, they tend to fold. And Jason Tatum said, no origami tonight, baby. Straight paper from three. It was money.
Yeah, lot of mixed opinions here in the chat. So if you guys are joining us here in the Bleacher Report app, get your takes in the chat here. I see there's a little bit of a mixed emotion. Like I said, this was a highly charged game tonight. I'm still trying to work my way through it, Greg. Like you said, you know, our text message threads, Control Alt Delete. We got to put them in the trash. We can never let those see the light of the day. This is a Watergate type scandal. We can't have those go public. It may be the end of our run as Green with Envy. But you know, like you guys said, there's a lot to dig into with this game. Jason Tatum, obviously the lead here, burying 4 threes in the third quarter. After at one point, you know, the people I was watching the game with, I asked them, is Jason Tatum's game tonight the equivalent of the Phoenix Suns in Game 7 last year? Like that's at the point where my mind was going to, but the Celtics somehow, some way, they found a way to get this done and are moving on to Game 7. So let's look at some of the key factors that went into this. And Greg, you're the coach of the podcast, so I'm going to bring this over to you here. You know, we've been critical of Joe Mazzulla. A lot of people have been critical of Joe Mazzulla. Tonight, he makes a big change. He goes with the double big lineup. He goes back to the lineup that was the best lineup in all of basketball last season, was, you know, a main reason for the Celtics making it to the NBA Finals. You know, we could talk about the offensive side of it, but defensively, this seemed like a pretty good call from Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah, Celtics were first to 10 and first to 15 tonight, if you were betting on the game. So those were some nice bets for the Celtics to win. So the offense wasn't an issue at all in the first quarter. We came out, and although Tatum didn't have it going, the defensive energy that Robert Williams brings, right? Like even beyond just tonight's game, the fact that Robert Williams was on the court, and at one point they had that great stat, I think Doris Burke shouted it out, that he was plus 17 on the court, minus 17 off the court. And this is what Tatum, early in the year, he was calling for more Robert Williams back on the court. He likes playing with Robert Williams. Everybody else on the team knows that they have that eraser sitting behind them, which allows them to play a little bit more freely on the defensive end, get up into guys' jerseys. You saw a lot less of James Harden just being able to foray into the paint and do what he wanted because Rob was in there. And also, when the Philadelphia 76ers are going to play PJ Tucker and a Tobias Harris front court along with Joel Embiid, there's just not enough spacing on the court. And it was very easy for the Celtics to send double and triple teams with guys that are all 6'8" to 6'10" with long arms, Jason Tatum included in there. I thought Tatum did a really good job and really timed his double teams on Embiid well. So I haven't looked at the box score yet. It didn't feel like Embiid, I don't think he had more than 25 points. Maybe he did. I know he got hot a little bit in the fourth quarter there, and he does his thing from the free throw line. But Robert Williams, man, that's the story of the game tonight, is although he didn't play down the stretch because we saw the limitations with Rob, right? He fumbles the ball away on offense. He's not sure of himself, doesn't make great decisions. His defensive presence was huge. So Adam, I know that you have some stuff to say about Rob in general. What do you got for Rob?
Yeah, so in the chat, Neil wrote that Robert Williams was the unsung hero, right? And I think that's fair. I think we can all agree that he had a huge impact. I just think that his lack of discipline on defense sometimes with biting on pump fakes, letting guys get past him that way off the dribble, that hurts his ability to stay on the floor sometimes. Like, especially when you're in a game where the Celtics are they're losing they go up big, they play at a fast pace. Robbie is really valuable when you're running the floor because he's just an elite rim runner, protector. Then you go into more of a half-court offense and a defense in the third quarter. Rob starts biting on the pump fakes, and there's a few issues where it's like, man, can we even keep Rob on the floor? Then he comes back in the fourth, has that big impact again. So I think Neil's right. I completely agree. Overall, he was an unsung hero. Looking at the chat, we've got saying, just to go back to Tatum a moment, Sean says he loves Jason Tatum, but he looks shook in big games. And shook is a word that we all used in our in private chat that we'll never see the light.
Excuse me, Adam. What chat is that? I don't think those chats exist.
I think the word I wanted to use was shooketh. Like I was feeling old English. Like he was just shooketh. But look, man, he was shook in the first three quarters. And the one thing I did say was the last thing that I want for Tatum is for the narrative to be that, hey, he had two really bad series in 2 seasons where the Celtics got bounced, one in the finals, one in the second round. He come back, man, and made that big fourth quarter impression. So I wouldn't say that he was shook, but there's definitely something there bothering him because this is the third straight game where he's struggled out of the gate, and it's been the latter part of the game where he's found his rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is really kind of remarkable for the way that he looked. To bounce back like that does say something about your character, despite what we were all thinking. And I know a lot of people in the chat here are saying that as well. Going to that double big lineup for a minute here, because we do have a comment here, from a very interesting screen name here, Romantic Asshole, I guess just gonna say it. I don't know how else to do it. That's the guy's screen name here, but he's saying that he thinks that Rob, that we should go to the double big more, that the double big should play even more. I mean, we're gonna look ahead to Game 7 more, but do you guys think that that double big lineup is the way to go for this team? Because Adam, you and I talked about this on our last podcast, that Missoula really wanted this team to buy into, hey, the defense will be there. We need to fix the offense. And you and I discussed, maybe we leaned in a little bit too much of that because we thought we could snap back quicker into that defensive mentality, which is what really propelled them during last season. And, that's what that starting five does, of Rob Williams, Al Horford, the Jays, and Marcus Smart. So, is that a lineup that we need to, as we look to Game 7 a little bit, is that one that you guys think we just need to really lean into?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, definitely.
Yeah, I think with the double big lineup, to me, it's a great kind of like surprise starter in baseball, right? You scratch your starting pitcher and you decide to go with somebody else who you think just might be a better matchup against that team. And it kind of, I think it caught the Sixers off guard because it took Doc Rivers a while to make the adjustment. And the adjustment against the double big is you have to get either Tucker or Harris off the court. You got to go small with Melton, or you got to go with George Niang, which he went with Melton, a little bit of Daniel House in the first half, and he decided to go with George Niang in the second half, just because what I mentioned earlier, that double big lineup, it causes so much problems for Philadelphia's starting lineup, right? So with the double big lineup, now that they've seen it, Doc Rivers, this is what coaches have to do, right? They still have one more game. If you're a Sixers fan out there, they still have one more game and they can make those adjustments. But this is the big issue with Doc Rivers, is that he has problems adjusting in games. I think that he tried to push all the buttons that he could tonight, but he couldn't quite figure out the best way to counteract that double big lineup. And then the great thing about the Celtics, though, is that they don't have to go double big, right? They can go double big while it's working, but they are very capable of going small. And that's another problem for this Philly team, because when we go small, our talent 1 through 4 is better than their talent 1 through 4. Right. I mean, maybe not, because Tyrese Maxey was amazing tonight. James Harden has had some moments, and we haven't seen much out of Derek White in this series. But I trust in Game 7 that our small lineup will outplay their small lineup if they decide to counteract the double big by going small.
Yeah, I'm all for going small.
Go ahead, Adam.
I'm all for going with a double big to start games, because you set the tone defensively. You know, if you can throw a team off rhythm in the opening 3 to 4 minutes of a game, it's going to take them probably the rest of that quarter to find their fluidity again. So going big to start that game, or to start Game 7 as well, is going to be perfect. My issue will be, you don't want to stay big too long, because, as you said, the adjustments that Doc Rivers can make. Another one is, when you play this double big lineup, you have Rob Williams operating in that roamer role. All you need to do is start running handoff actions on the strong side with a poor shooter receiving the ball and a good shooter kind of ghosting back down into the corner. And you're committing Rob to being away from the paint, which means you're taking away his value there. Then you need to try and scram switch while stuff's going on everywhere else. It just causes a few matchup issues. Teams have figured out how to attack that Rob Williams on the weakest shooter. So I'm down to start games like that, and I'm also down to finish games like that when it's called for. But it's not something that I'd be like, hey, we need to be rigid with this, especially not as rigid as what the Celtics were last season, when teams were still figuring out how to deal with Rob helping off of poor shooters.
Yeah, and a big part of that lineup, which I think is the next storyline that we need to get to here, Marcus Smart. You know, Marcus Smart is a guy that we ride the roller coaster on time and time again. And tonight was one of those peaks. Gave us a few scares where, you know, you thought maybe we were going to hit that other side of the coin with Marcus Smart, but he was really special in this game. And I think this is one of the reasons why anytime you ever want to question if Marcus Smart is a guy you want as you know, a stereotypical foxhole type of guy in the playoffs, tonight is the night that you want him. Tonight's a night where he was one of the only guys from tip all the way through the completion of the game where it felt like there was a confidence level to him in this game that just was missing at different parts, whether it was from Tatum or it was from Jalen. I mean, Al was afraid to shoot at certain points, you know, so it was really smart that leveled this team from start to finish, finishes with 22 points, has 7 assists, only 3 turnovers with that. And so, you know, I think he's really the guy that I have to look to tonight. And Greg, for me, he's the MVP, despite Tatum coming in and closing it. That was a Kenley Jansen, if we will, for our Boston Red Sox fans out there. But, you know, Marcus Smart was the guy that got you 7-8 innings tonight to get to that close.
I prefer Heathcliff Slocum, Will. My favorite Red Sox closer of all time.
Here.
Tom Gordon. Tom Gordon.
Come on now.
Tom Gordon all day, every day. Yeah, Marcus Smart was amazing, though, in this game. Adam's like, well, who the heck are you guys talking about? Yeah, Marcus Smart was amazing. He had a couple of bonehead plays down the stretch, because in the last 90 seconds of every game, that's what Marcus Smart does. But I know that we do have a highlight here ready that we want to play, and then we can continue that Marcus Smart talk after.
So I think you can keep going here, Greg, if you as we kind of watch some of this right here. We've got the game recap going up, and of course we don't want to start with the Jason Tatum missed layup, but Marcus Smart was just so essential tonight to be the tone setter. And Adam, we've talked before that usually that's kind of Jalen's role, right? Tonight it was Marcus Smart. Marcus hit the first couple of threes to go down, and then we're watching Brogdon here as well. We do need to give Malcolm Brogdon a shout out because that first half without Malcolm Brogdon, this could have, Celtics had a 7-point lead. It felt like it, could have been a lot more, obviously, with the play of some of the superstars, but Brogdon was fantastic to give you that scoring edge, which is something we've consistently talked about that he brings to this team.
You know what else is so what really stood out to me in the first half of the game watching these highlights, and then we can go back on Brogdon in a second, is how everything good came off paint touches, right? And it's something that's been a complete narrative all the way through the season. But when you're watching through these highlights, everything good that Boston did came from 2 feet touching the paint, kicking it out, or then attacking. And I think that's where Brogdon's value really comes in. Like, he's going to be able to spot up and score after catch, but he's also not afraid to dribble into the teeth of the defense, really draw guys, and then make a read out of there or finish a play. So he's been huge. That's the whole reason the Celtics brought him in, right? They needed an extra scorer, ball handler, decision maker off the bench. Brogdon's come in and been everything they needed and more. And defensively, he hasn't been awful. There's been a few plays where I've questioned him, but look here, that was just an unfortunate one to have when I was saying, look here, Brogdon just getting ripped on the drive.
That's the thing with Brogdon, right? It's like when that play was happening, when Harden ripped him, you could tell that Brogdon was going to foray into the paint and that Harden was going to dig down and strip him, right? He doesn't really have like a great feel of when to go. With Malcolm Brogdon, it's just like all gas, no brakes all the time, right? Yeah. He's just going to go to the bucket. You know that he's going to either shoot that little fall away or he's going to try to get to his left-hand layup. But let's take a look at these Jason Tatum highlights. That was the first 3 right there that really got him going. And when he shot it with confidence, man. And this is, talk about shooketh. Adam, talk about shooketh. Tyrese Maxey got shooketh on that play.
Shooketh, dude. Do you know what I'm missing? Do you know what I missed? Hearing Mike Gorman shout "got it" as Tatum hits that first 3, man. Like that.
It was the perfect Mike Gorman moment. This was the perfect Mike Gorman moment. And it's funny. We were talking about Jason Tatum's body language, and then when he hit that 3 on Maxey, it was as if he was having a 50-point night. The way that he reacted when he let that ball go, it's just so amazing to think about the mentality that you have to be able to just come back, with that with that ability at the end of the game after you've struggled for so long. I know we have a couple of chats here. I see one. I have pure optimism after game 6 with Tatum being in the freezer the entire game and still getting the win. Shout out to @EHGRAD. We got a few others here that I want to just shout out real quick. We got @Mika. This is an interesting question here for you guys. I'll let you start here, Adam, and then we'll go over to Greg. @Mika. We should play Hauser and Grant Williams more. And then that goes right along with @Gallinari, who also had a question. Do we play only 7 guys again on Sunday? So some conflicting views in the chat here about, went with a really tight rotation today. Obviously, we talked about changing to the double big lineup. That leaves you just with Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon on the bench to kind of stagger in. So they go 7 deep. Thinking about game 7 on Sunday, is this the recipe and you stick with it, or does it depend on the flow of the game? What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I'm shocked that Grant Williams didn't get any minutes. I've been very vocal about what he can do for this team. And I think for me, to start the series, Joe Mazzulla was asked what's one of the biggest adjustments you can make. And he's like, play Grant Williams more minutes. Okay, so where was he on game 6? Like, there was a time where Tatum was struggling. He was just making bad decisions. You could see that he just didn't have that feel. And I was like, this would be the perfect time to sit Tatum, let him regather his kind of composure and give Grant Williams an opportunity to just space the floor, run some dribble handoff actions, and just give the offense a new, different type of rhythm. It didn't happen. I'd expect to see him in game 7 just because I think he gives you another body to throw at Embiid, a different look for Embiid to need to deal with. This is not the series for Sam Hauser. I just don't see where Sam Hauser slots in and is a viable defensive piece. I get it, you put Sam Hauser in and teams' offensive flows just go out the window because everyone starts trying to hunt him on mismatches, and that can be beneficial. But I think if I have to choose between one of the two, I've run with Grant. I've run an 8-man rotation, and then if Grant gives you good minutes, then you give him more. If the offense or defense isn't really ticking with that, then you pull him out of the rotation and go back down to 7-man rotation. But I'd definitely give a trial to see how he does in game 7.
Yeah, and I think this is pretty typical for what happens the longer playoff series go, is that teams will shorten their rotations, right? We have 7 starters on this team. So that's we've been saying that all year. We have 7 starters on this team, so we're going to play those guys that are legitimate NBA starters as many minutes as we can. And tonight in a do or die game, I don't know if this was the night for Grant Williams to kind of like go a little bit against what Adam was saying. I think that if those minutes are going, if you're sitting Tatum, I'd prefer to have Derek White on the court. I prefer to have Brogdon on the court. I prefer to have Rob on the court with the impact that he was making. So like Rob played the most minutes of the series tonight. So I think like if you're going to go less Rob, then you can go with Grant. But if you're going to go more Rob, which I preferred tonight, to your point, Adam, I would say in game 7, I would like to see a little bit of Grant. You got the home crowd behind him. Grant's good. He was great in game 7 last year. He won us game 7 against Milwaukee last year with all those 3-pointers that he hit. Milwaukee dared him to be the guy to beat us. And that's what Grant Williams can do, right? That's what's great about having depth, is that when you need it, it's there. But in a do or die game on the road, you got veterans on the team. You have a tried and true recipe for success. That's those 7 guys, with Brogdon there from last year, that we added to the core 6 from last year that we can rely on. And that's what I think the Celtics did tonight. That's that Joe was just like, you know what? I got 7 starters. I'm rolling with my starters. Like, no more Grant Williams, no more Sam Hauser.
Yeah.
I talked about playing Peyton Pritchard. Ain't happening. We're going 7 deep, and that's it.
If we're going down, I'm going down with my top guys, and that's just the way it's going to be. And, I'm looking at the box score right now, and one thing, and plus minus is certainly, a tricky stat for an individual game that's not always super reliable, but it stands out very boldly here. Plus minus tonight for Robert Williams, plus 18. Plus minus tonight for Marcus Smart, plus 18. There's a handful of guys that were, just above 0. It was actually -7 for Derek White tonight, but those 2 guys are just monsters in that category right now. And I think it's the reason that we've spent the majority of the time tonight talking about those 2, because of the impact that they've had. And I think when you flip over to the Sixers, and this is where, looking at it from kind of their perspective for a little bit, this team so far this series has a little bit come and gone as James Harden's come and gone, which makes sense. He's one of your 2 best players. So you think game 1 and obviously, game 4, he goes bananas for 40 plus. He only shoots the ball 8 times in game 5 and they get a win, but he was extremely in control of that game with the pick and roll that they were utilizing with Joel Embiid, the way that they picked on kind of that Brogdon Rob Williams matchup at different times. They were getting it helped the Celtics just didn't show up, but a lot of that was Harden just being in control. But tonight, another one of those Harden games where he goes 4 of 16 from the field. He's 0 of 6 from 3, has a total of 13 points and 5 turnovers. And it really makes you think that, as we look to Sunday, Embiid's going to do what he's going to do. It feels like, Greg, operation number 1 is going to be, how can we not let James Harden get going? Because even on a night like tonight where Tyrese Maxey was really great, it still seems like Harden is the guy that is going to make or break what Philly's able to do.
Yeah, and we talk about like legacy, right? That's a thing people like to throw around when it comes to playoffs. I feel like James Harden, when you type in James Harden into Google search, like legacy is one of the first things that's going to come up, because these are the games. Game 6 tonight, if James Harden shows up and knocks out Boston in game 6 for Philly, like this is a legacy game for James Harden. Just like we were saying, like, oh, is this going to alter Tatum's career trajectory tonight if he didn't turn it on in the 4th quarter? And with James Harden, man, like he has to be there in game 7, and he has to have an imprint on the game. He had a couple moments like that big dunk. He had the steal on Brogdon, but there was never
real
a time
quick, Greg,
where
that was James Harden's 2nd dunk of the season. That was just like he dunked once in October and once tonight. I think it took all his energy out of him, because I think that was the last thing I remember him doing. So he dunked and then he was spent.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what we've come to expect out of James Harden. This is why I was saying, like, I really hope Tatum is able to, I hope the team is able to get to a game 7, because I didn't want game 6, if we had lost tonight, if Tatum hadn't turned it around, to be the last thing that we think about Jason Tatum going into the offseason, because like I think Jason Tatum is that guy, but if we had lost in Game 6 tonight, the whole narrative of this that we are talking about tonight and all offseason would have been, is Jason Tatum really that guy? There's going to be the talk about splitting up Jaylen Brown versus Jason Tatum, all the stuff that we love to talk about as podcast hosts. WEEI would be hitting it. And with James Harden, it's going to be the same stuff. I bet if you go over to the Philly broadcast right now, that's all they're talking about is where the heck was James Harden tonight? Because Tyrese Maxey showed up. Embiid was okay. He didn't have an MVP-like performance, but he just did it, right? Embiid just did that MVP performance in the last game. So they needed James Harden. Game 7 is really going to define his stint in Philly. If he's able to have a big game, even if they lose and James Harden has a great game, that's going to allow people to talk about James Harden in a way that's a lot more positive than they're probably talking about him right now.
Yeah, so I think with that, let's go into Game 7 here, right? Let's get some of our predictions here on what is definitively going to happen, because somehow it's 3-3. This series has been all over the map for our expectations. I know as a collective here, as the three-man weave, we were chesty as all hell coming into this. We were, this is
Pam Anderson, dude. We were Pam Anderson coming into this thing.
We were, if you could do a six game gentleman sweep, that's basically what we were predicting. A very breezy 6-game series, if that was, if that's even a thing. And here we are. It's Game 7. It's coming up on Sunday. A Mother's Day delight. Adam, give me your prediction, but then also give me either your biggest takeaway for that game or your biggest expectation for that game, or a player that you think that game will hinge on. And then same to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to just take the low-hanging fruit and then I'll give you another one as well. So I think this is Jason Tatum coming off that fourth quarter performance and really dominates from the opening tip. I think this is going to be that Jason Tatum game everyone's waiting for, that 40-plus point scoring night with 10 rebounds, 8 assists. It's going to be a big-time stat line. I'm expecting him to just dominate all the way through. So I'm expecting the Celtics to win. It's going to be a close one. They've had trouble in the Garden recently playing in front of a home crowd, so that's going to be a battle. We don't know what time the game's starting yet. If it's early, then that's going to be another hurdle to overcome.
I think it's going to be an afternoon game. So I think 3:30 Eastern is what it's scheduled to be. We'll see if it gets bumped around,
and
but right now it's going to be an afternoon game.
That's perfect for me. Like, I'm living the best life there. Like, I'm not up at nearly 4 a.m. doing a post game. But at the same time, I think that, the Celtics have struggled when starting games early. So that's going to be a hurdle to overcome. Playing in front of a home crowd where they haven't performed great. They got booed in the third in Game 5. That's a hurdle to overcome. Tatum has a big night, and I expect Robert Williams to be a huge impact maker. I think they start running more plays for him above the rim, especially if they can find ways to draw Joel Embiid a bit higher up the floor.
Now, Will, I would love to talk about my predictions for Game 7, but you are going to be in the building. So I need to hear from you, my friend. What are you expecting at TD Garden for Game 7?
I mean, listen, if you're going to be in the building, holla at your boy. Let's get it going. Because we need, as a crowd, we need to bring it. And I'm going to do my best to do my part and bring the ruckus. We're going to bring that Wu-Tang into the TD Garden, and we're going to get it lit. So, I mean, no doubt. Listen, we've said this all season long. At its best, I think this is legitimately the best team in the NBA. That's even before the Milwaukee Bucks got eliminated. At their best, I think this is the best team. I think tonight was an example that we haven't seen too much this season, which is a really just gritty win. It's either when we get a lot of our wins, it's that early part of the season where we're just knocking down threes. And we hit threes tonight. We shot over 40% tonight from threes, despite the struggles that we've talked about from some of the star players. When the Celtics go over 40% from three, you damn near can't beat them. I think they've lost 2 games all season when they've gone over 40% from three. So when you look to having that home court advantage, this is a big reason, just like last year against Milwaukee Bucks. I know the record at home isn't great. If you always have that opportunity, you want Game 7 at home. We know the TD Garden can be a home court advantage. I think the Celtics take advantage. And much like we talked about Grant Williams last year and Kelly Olynyk in years past, it's going to be a role player. Yes, Jason Tatum. Yes, Jaylen Brown need to step up, need to be there. I think Al breaks out. I think Al. We've seen Al. He's had one game in this series. He's ice cold. He's ice cold right now. My man is Eskimo levels of cold right now. But I think Game 7, we've seen Al do it too many times. The man shot nearly 45% in the regular season. I think playoff Al comes out in a big way and the Celtics get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. What's your prediction, Greg?
Yeah, I got the Celtics winning. I was talking with a buddy at work today who's from Philly, big Philly fan, and he was like, if we don't win tonight, dude, like there's no way we're winning this series. He was already expecting to lose, which made me feel a lot better. But I was talking to some Philly fans today. I was like, oh, they're not confident at all. And you felt that in the stadium tonight, right? Like once the whole team gave up. We were up by like 6 points with 90 seconds left, and the Philly just like gave up on the court. The whole crowd was dejected. Yeah, I heard this like smattering of boos. Doc Rivers kind of just stopped coaching, put his hands up, like, what are we doing, guys? So I think tonight was the night for the Sixers to win. I think the Celtics win handedly in Game 7. Hopefully, if we get up early, which I expect us to do, that we're able to extend that lead and we can all just rest easy. Adam and I are going to be on Bleacher Report after the Game 7. So Will's going to be at the game. So unfortunately, you won't get Will, but you will get me and Adam. We'll be here breaking it down, talking about it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, talking about how the Celtics are going to be going to the Eastern Conference Finals again.
Sunday, mark it down. The best 2 words in sports. Game 7, Celtics, Sixers. Once again, we are Green with Envy. We appreciate everybody for joining us here, for trying to work through their emotions on a wild, wild Game 6. My name is Will Weir. We got the coach, Greg Menakis. We got the leader of the Taylor gang, Adam Taylor. We are Green with Envy. Make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure you guys tune into the podcast. Shout out to Bleacher Report and everybody in the chat for tuning in. As Greg mentioned, we'll be back here, minus myself, as I'll be in the building, but Greg and Adam will have you covered for a post-Game 7 recap right here on the Bleacher Report. Appreciate y'all. Let's go Celtics.